I think the biggest pattern that I see is the tendency to move into factions and then go, we're great and you're not, to kind of avoid looking inward at what we could do better. The moment of like, well, we couldn't deliver that thing because this team didn't deliver their thing. Instead of, oh, hey, there's a problem over here. Let's look at that problem together. And it made everyone's lives harder, both sides. Everyone was frustrated with each other all the time. People are feeling very, very pressured to come up with reasons as to why things aren't going well. And it's very rare that they'll say, well, my team is struggling with this thing. And taking down that mask of performance and saying, I'm struggling as a leader. I need help.
Welcome to the Rise and Play podcast. I am Sophie and Zoë, your host and leadership coach. In the show, my wonderful co-host and I sit down with influential and diverse leaders from the gaming industry to hear about their leadership journey. Not the well-polished stories, but the real stories. The up and down, the breakthrough, and the failures. Or should we rather say learnings? Each episode will transport you into a magical space of vulnerability with our guest. And together, you'll be reminded that no matter how hard it is, you are not alone in this journey and find the courage to keep going. Come and join the ride. Let's begin. A former product leader who worked 16 years in the gaming industry, I know how difficult it is to get reliable and usable player insights. The logistics of scheduling, recruiting the right players, collecting and reviewing feedback, it is all time away from game development. But you know how fundamental it is to test assumptions with your core audience and iterate at a lower cost before marketing an unproven game. I am proud to announce Playtest Cloud as our key partner, as I have believed since day one in the quality of their service and their mission to democratize player research. Playtest Cloud can take the hassle out of organizing game research yourself and delivers results within 48 hours, allowing you to implement changes in time for your release. Having been a long-time user of the platform, it is the industry standard used by top AAA and mobile studios, and now they also support indie developers with special pricing. Working for a year on the wrong game is an expensive mistake, and you can de-risk it now by investing in your player research. Check out the show notes for a free trial and learn more about Playtest Cloud. So hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Rise and Play. And today I'm delighted, excited, thrilled to have Zoë Curnoe with us here on the show. And so before we start giving a bit of intro for the ones who don't know you yet, Zoë has a career in production and operational leadership in gaming and leading teams from different sizes of organization, 22 years in your career, and working for big companies, no names, so I'll mention those, Riot Games, Electronic Art, but also smaller studios like Backbone Entertainment. I mean, small studios, they are also quite famous in the space. I like the humbleness, like smaller studios size. Pandemic Studios, almost a decade at the Coalition, which is an Xbox studio. And at the Coalition, you shipped Gears of War 4 and Gears 5 as a production director and of the campaign team. And on top of that, Zoë has more under her belly. She has spearheaded ventures from inception as a co-founder and studio director of Timber Games in 2021, where you built and led all the aspects of operation, production from scratch while leading the studio to rapid growth. And I've known of the studio because I was super inspired, I remember, by the website with the illustration. It was a way that was super creative of presenting a studio. I connected a lot with that. So now seeing the faces of behind the studio is amazing, and I connected so much with you. So like everything makes sense now that I connect the dots. And we'll get into that. But today you're not doing that. You moved after Timber in 2024 to launch Lumina Leadership, boutique coaching and leadership training firm, from a desire to support leaders navigating increasingly complex challenges and transition. That's the chaos we're in right now. But it's okay. We have it. So welcome, Zoë.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, thank you. We both share career in games, in leadership. I don't know if sometimes these days you reflect back on your career, so that I'm sending you back to this time to give a bit of context also how you got into games and what led you very quickly to some position of leadership, production that led later to your business.
Yeah, it's funny to think about it. I think, ultimately it makes sense. I ended up in games. I played games as a kid. I had two older brothers. They would bring home Nintendo and then we would beat each other in Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and tease each other. So my passion for games started pretty young. My family is a very creative family. My father was actually quite I'm going to say famous Canadian artist. He supported us fully by doing that. So I grew up in a very creative family, very supportive of doing creative things. So I didn't have that experience of, oh, I want to go to art school or I want to make video games. And my parents were like, no, you must be a lawyer, an accountant, or, something like that. I didn't have that experience. I was very lucky. But I went to school for creative, so photography and art history. And it was the 90s. So rave culture was beginning in Montreal. It was this very exciting sort of counterculture time of coming out of that punk rock 80s goth time and then going into this time of colorful, and it was super integrated with video games. It was all electronic music, and it really inspired me to then want to learn more about digital media, and website design was starting and the internet was, burgeoning. It was this really exciting time. And so at the end of my degree, I realized I need some computer technical skills. I don't really have these, but I love it. So I went back to school, moved out to Vancouver from Ontario, and then went to like a multimedia program where we were learning multimedia design. It's so funny. We were learning like lingo in Director, making CD-ROM designs. It was the late 90s, early 2000s. So that's what I started doing.
CD-ROMs.
Yeah, like actual multimedia design. And I didn't really know what a career in games could be. If you're in Vancouver, you hear about electronic arts. Back then, Radical Entertainment was also very well known, very big. So everyone was talking about it, but it was like this, like a fog. Like, how do you get into it? How do you enter that industry? And I happened to have a teacher in our program who was a development director at Electronic Arts. She taught our project management class in our multimedia program. And I remember thinking, oh, I want to do that. And I didn't know, like, I really was an artist. I was a photographer and then started doing multimedia design. But I just realized that I was like, no, I want to be helping creative people do cool creative stuff. Like, that's what I want to do. And it wasn't super specific. It wasn't like, oh, I want to be a producer of video games, but it was like, what she's doing, that's cool. But I remember her showing like, oh, the dependencies and how you get people collaborating and how you get them working together. And it was just so interesting to me. So I didn't get into games right after that. I did a little stint in school that was teaching game design, but I got very connected with a lot of people in the industry through that program. And a lot of them just would say to me, like, you'd be a really good producer. Like, why don't you go get a job in games? And I applied for so many and I could not get hired. It was about 2002, 2003-ish. Mm-hmm. They wanted quality assurance experience back then to be a producer. Like, you had to have QA experience or they just really wouldn't look at you. And it was a little bit frustrating for me. It was like, how do you get your foot in the door? So luckily in Canada, they still have this program. It's arts administration education. It's to get more people working in the arts in Canada. And it's at a beautiful place in Alberta, Canada, called the Banff Centre. So Banff is a town in Alberta. It's in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. It's this absolutely idyllic place. And I had a connection to it through my father. So I had lived there with him for a month in the late 80s when he was teaching there for 3 months as a visiting artist. And so I had this deep connection to him as well in that program. My father actually died quite suddenly when I was 20 years old. And so it was a coming back to a place where I had this deep connection to someone, a deep connection to creativity and artists. And it was a program to teach you how to be a producer for digital media projects. And I was there for 2 years and it was incredible. It was the best experience of my life. And I came out of that and was able to come back to Vancouver and get my first job in commercial video game development. So we made some educational games at the Banff Centre. And then, I came back to Vancouver and got my first job in games. I know actually that the producer whose team I ended up on didn't want to hire me because he wanted me to have QA experience. But shout out to Joe Bonner. He was the studio director and Phyllis Bowman was our HR director. And they were like, hire her. And so they forced me onto his team. It's kind of funny. And I was in my early 30s by then. Yeah, it was definitely like a later in life transition for me. And I absolutely loved it. And very lucky. That was at Backbone Entertainment here in Vancouver. That they were an independent studio. They'd just been acquired by Backbone. And two people I met there, pivotal in my career, I don't know if they know this, but Tyler Sigmund and Chris Barassa, who are the founders of Red Hook Games, who made Darkest Dungeon. So they came out of Backbone Entertainment, and they were the two of the main leads on the project that I was on. So it was incredible to learn from them and see how they made games and experience their creativity. And they were so patient and so understanding of helping me. You know, commercial games development is so different no matter what you learn before that. And I think it was a great experience, but it's carried me through for 22 years. So, yeah.
Well, thanks. But I was traveling with you with, your story into a lot of creativity, work, art, drive, people, persistence as well, right? Because, okay, no, not the right time, I do, and like different doors. And then, you really develop your career because for me, I entered games, started to work in games when around 2009, I think. So it was probably even more difficult with what you shared to get into the space, learn from what, like early education and learning as doing. Maybe a point of reflection here that will lead us into the topic around here, leadership, in games to coaching today, what we do, because leading teams, people, this is evolving with our time. So I'm sure the leadership was not the same in 2000 production with what it was to 2010, 2020, and I have no idea in 2025, 26.
What it will be.
It's like changing every year. So what was the evolution of leading teams throughout your career until, now, observation?
I think honestly, I still see the same problems. So, and that's part of why I want to do what I do. And I think it's partly why you do what you're doing too. But has it changed and evolved? I talk to people about the same things that I saw back then. And so I really feel like we're in a crisis right now. And if we don't change, I don't know what's going to happen. So I feel a little like, hey, folks, like the sirens are going off. Are you listening to them? And no, AI is not going to save us. Go figure. So I was getting into games in my multimedia program when 9/11 happened. I actually started my program on September 12th, 2001, that multimedia program. Then the dot-com crash happened while I was in that program. And what I worry about right now is there are a lot of young founders right now that weren't around in that early 2000s, and they didn't see the dot-com crash. They didn't see the panacea over the internet and web design, which kind of makes me chuckle, like, where are all the web designers? So like if we don't recognize that happened before and we don't apply that to what's happening now, we're not going to learn from it. We're just going to keep repeating our mistakes. It's almost like boiling water in my brain a lot lately, is how do we learn from the past? And so now that I've been a leader and I've tried to affect change at the companies I've been at and the teams I've been on, I feel people coming to me for the same problems that we were talking about 20 years ago. I think the biggest one that I see is the sort of the inability to lead change or crisis. So just like oh my God, how do I do this? Or delivering very difficult messages in very broken ways and teams getting very stressed out. And then leads and leaders becoming people leaders who have no clue how to lead people. They're really good at leading their discipline and at directing engineering, design, art, whatever area, QA, but they have just a huge gap of a fundamental experience because they've been doing it a long time, but really understanding what it takes to lead people and humans. And video game development can be really messy and super stressful, partly because it's incredibly complex and it's creative and technology and interactive, but because it's people. And if we don't look at those things equally and consider them equally, we're going to kind of keep having these missteps. Finding I'm talking to people about they're having not great performance reviews, or a leader who doesn't know how to deliver a difficult one because They just haven't had any training or practice where they're going to Chat GPT and asking it how to have the difficult conversation, which I know we're going to talk about as well, which is a great tool. But Chat GPT is not a human. So if you are not talking to someone who maybe bursts into tears when you're having a hard conversation, if you haven't had that practice, you don't know how to deal with it. And like with anything, it's like a muscle.
Yes.
We have to train it, and then we have to keep training it, and consistency there and improving on it.
So many insights I want to follow up on, and I fully understand and really embody what you're saying right now, because I've been through it. Changes that I've seen a lot in the gaming industry. I think it's one that is amazing, that the pace, it was always one that was a step ahead of others, even tech and consumer product. I don't know if that's still true today, but then leading that, the crisis, the change is the constant here. From your different places, because you worked in different organizations, different team setup, different type of crisis to deal with, what have been also the patterns and blockers you've seen either with people to lead those changes, or in organization structurally, that maybe we still don't have a solution for it, but at least we can identify the patterns? I'm curious to hear your insights.
Yeah, I think the biggest pattern that I see is the tendency to move into factions, discipline factions or team factions, and then go, we're great and you're not, to kind of avoid looking inward at what we could do better. The moment of well, we couldn't deliver that thing because this team didn't deliver their thing. Instead of, oh, hey, there's a problem over here. Let's look at that problem together. It almost can be encouraged too sometimes in the way that we reward people as well in our industry, even just in corporate world, of we're only really valuing people as to their accomplishments rather than the how they got there. And then there was a lot of talk about this sort of through the 20 teens, I'm going to say, of well, let's look at the how of things are being delivered. I'm not sure how much that was adopted. We need to look at that a little bit more. And we call it soft skills, which I call them fundamental leadership skills, because they are.
Yes.
But it's a human tendency, right, to create in and out groups. It's what we do as humans, because it's kind of how we survived. It gets attention, but it also, it works. And I hesitate to say that because it seems counterintuitive to how you and I think both lead and coach, but it works. So of course you're going to do the thing that works. If I push the blame onto another team and say, well, I didn't accomplish this thing because that other team didn't deliver the thing I needed, it works. And that one is a pattern I've seen for years. And it was actually a huge goal of mine at Timber to say, this stops here.
Yeah.
This is not going to happen. And if this starts happening, I will call you out and we're going to talk about it. That's why I managed both operations and production, because my huge sort of pain point for years and years was HR and recruiting being so separate from the production development. It drove me insane. And it made everyone's lives harder, both sides. Everyone was frustrated with each other all the time. Recruiting, I can't get time from managers, and managers going, they're not hiring who I want. I just wanted that to end. And I think we did see a big improvement with that. And our recruiters took a huge effort to understand game development and talk to the managers and understand what they were going through and accommodate them when they were busy. And you saw our managers reaching out to recruiting a lot more and partnering with them with no one in between. They just worked quite closely together. And even with IT and even on the QA side, we've done such a bad job of sitting QA in the corner and blaming them for things when things go wrong, when often it's our fault, right? I think we mix up collaboration with that because we say, oh no, we're collaborating great. We're all working on this thing together. Everyone's moving things forward. But then, on Slack or in that meeting on the corner, people are feeling very, very pressured to come up with reasons as to why things aren't going well. And it's very rare that they'll say, well, my team is struggling with this thing. And taking down that mask of performance and saying, I'm struggling as a leader. I need help.
And asking for help, it's not something that is modeled so much in more of a legacy of leadership. So what I see that you've done also is like building a studio with new paradigms or changes, because that's the most, I would say, impactful way to build exactly the studio in new basis. Because when you are like on the top of the structure, above the leadership, you can change those things and create the safety. So that's something I realized as you were talking. Like we need to go a level deeper. Why are not people taking responsibility? There's the fear and a lot of, and this needs to be led by example. When a leader would say, okay, I made a mistake here, or I need help.
Yeah.
This is giving permission for the rest of teams. Like this is okay to lead like this, man, So it's a really vicious circle, and it remains this way.
And you know what, actually, I would say, I love you brought that up, is because I think we actually failed at that at Timber. But fucking up and it being okay. I think we failed at that at Timber. And I think we failed a few people at that studio. Instead of saying, oof, wow, this is a misstep. How do we help you? And we care about you. We have very high standards, but we're devoted to your success.
Yeah.
And we're here no matter what.
Well, also very powerful to also own and take responsibility. It's never too late. Like even to close your own story. I have built my own studio, and there's the intention. I always assume people have good intention, and there's the stress, there's the pressure, the system and everything. And it's easy to fall into the patterns. Absolutely. Because we're not an independent studio and people around you. So it takes a lot of discipline to actually check on yourself, a coach, to make sense of yourself and take a step back and observe yourself. So that's why it's really hard to lead alone. It's a very lonely role when you lead, and you need support. I think this is something more and more leaders recognize, which is why we're doing what we're doing, to get help, because we can't expect that from the team. We can't expect that from the co-founders and partners. Everyone has a full-time job and focus. So who's left? And our partner at home, even worse. It creates problems. I tried, but didn't end well.
I love what you're saying, is it actually comes up with a conversation I had recently. And we were talking about how coaching can help you like untangle this mess that's in your head. So I was thinking about it. I learned to knit during the pandemic. And so I was thinking about the like ball of wool I have that's constantly getting tangled, and I'm like constantly unwinding it and winding it back on my hand. And I'm like, how do I keep this thing from getting tangled? But in my mind, I was imagining like there's these tangles of yarn in people's brains, and you're going to need someone to help you pull on that first yarn to start unraveling it and winding it back up. And the thought that you have to do that yourself, like, my gosh, what a lot of pressure that is, and expectation.
Yeah.
That, well, you're a leader now, so you must know how to do everything and how to do all these things. And you better show your team that you know everything and every answer to everything. And I actually don't think that's what teams want either.
No, yeah. Well, we are figuring it out as well. Everyone is figuring it out.
Yeah. And so if you're not talking about what you're not amazing at, and if you're not telling your team, you know what, I kind of struggle with these things, but I've created this leadership team where they fill in my gaps. But if I misstep, please let me know. That aspect. I don't know if you know the organizational psychologist, Adam Grant. He basically says, the most powerful thing you can do as a leader is admit to your team what you are not good at. Because he's like, I'll let you in on a secret. They already know. So like, have the grace to say it out loud, because they're all talking about it.
Yeah.
If you just say like, hey, this thing, I'm filling in these gaps, but let me know if there's other things in there. And if those conversations are so much more open and so much more available to teams and leaders, I think leaders are going to level up, and they're going to be willing to get the help.
And they should.
I think the new generation is doing it a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. But that's a challenge for younger leaders. I'm coaching a few. They don't have the tools to deal with that, So that's, in a generation where, again, you go through ChatGPT to process the thoughts and so on, is like in the raw moment, I don't have the script. So the muscle is not trained. So this is also one of the challenges.
Yeah, I see that same thing. Absolutely. Yeah. What language do I have, or how have I been taught to have that conversation? Do they get taught that? Not in school.
No.
Yeah.
No, but they have many responsibility much younger than at least I could remember. When I see some CEOs, they are in their 20s, they have a
Yes.
company making 100 million. It's like, I think I was just enjoying my life like a late teenager in my, it's like, what is this? And we're already like on the trajectory, burning out and overheated by the system. It's like, let me help you. Like you're like kind of Zen monk close to them because they're on a completely different speed, but they haven't processed like, I mean, it's normal. Like at their age, I was like, I couldn't do. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, new challenges for the younger generation because they're much faster. They can do much more.
Yes.
But we also haven't trained at the pace of the success of, of the business and how fast they go. Yeah.
And them knowing when to stop and take a moment. I mean, I'd be a little touchy-feely, but like, what's in your heart in this moment? Get out of your head. Like, take a deep breath, meditate for a moment. And what are you feeling in this moment? And I worry that with some trends that we're seeing, that we're dismissing kind of emotions and feelings and things that come from the heart. Yeah. And if you spend all the time up here, what's going on? What are you feeling is happening to you? What's scary? What's enjoyable? What's bringing you joy? Just moving 1,000,000 miles an hour forward. What happens when you get to the end of it?
Well, in the 30s, it's going to be quite rough for the body. Yeah. Somatic symptoms, chronic diseases. This is also the generation we live in.
Yes. And younger. That's happening. Yeah. Those diseases, which is quite shocking when you look at that information. Yeah. Because we're forgetting that there's this being that is carrying us through. It's not just a container for your brain.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's how we end up like connected to a computer and the body can age and die because, we are not supporting that future. I like flesh and physicality and touching, another person and skin, like having presence. So
we're not creating the matrix.
Yeah. I'd like to come back to a point of transition in your life. You've done many roles that are on paper, amazing companies, roles of responsibility. You build your own studio. This is like the dream for many leaders who are growing in the space, women as well, leaders. And you decided to go independent in 2024. I'm curious about the decision of the transition and why not building your own startup again? I don't know. And then going more into leadership, coaching, which is very relevant for some professionals who are in transition, a bit like forced out of the market. It's very hard to find a job
right now.
Or maybe they are not feeling fulfilled anymore with what they do anyway, and they decide to build like a more independent path. So what was your journey there?
I think a part of it has to do with age. So 2020, 2021 pandemic happened. And I just found after almost 8 years of working a lot, we crunched to ship games at the coalition. That was our culture. That's how we worked. So at the end of year 5, we shipped DLC. We didn't work a lot of crunch on that project. It was so enjoyable. I just loved it. And I really did love working at that studio. But I was heading to 50 in 2021. So it was coming up. I'd had a coach for years. I had 3 different coaches by that point. And I was using coaching day to day anyway. So I thought, well, let's go get trained in this officially so that I know what I'm doing. And I loved my training so much. And I made lifelong friends in that program. And I just had the time to do it because it was a pandemic. We were at home. I had more time. I wasn't spending all my time at work. And I was also heading into menopause. And so physically and mentally, my life was changing. I'd had an incredibly difficult time with perimenopause, really, really hard. And I really was like, well, how do I kind of get time back and focus on what brings me joy? And then I had 2 choices. I finished the coaching program. I could go start my own thing, or I could go do timber. And I really wanted the experience of starting my own studio. It was so exciting. So went and did that instead, turned 50 while I was there, but then realized like the draw to do the coaching and have my own thing was so strong and so funny. I had picked this number. I had picked 55 And I could laugh about it because there's an ad in Canada for this life insurance company. It's like an investment company. And they go, it's called Freedom 55. And like from a child, I have seen those ads. And I've seen it the other day because like, what? I picked 55 as the number. And I swear that was imprinted on me from a very young age. It was like at 55, you're going to go do your own thing. It's going to be your thing. And so then I also looked at timber, was like, okay, I've been there for almost 5 years. For 5 years, I'll pass it on to the next generation. And I kind of had this, like, I'm going to do this and then this and this. But life doesn't work like that. We know that. We can plan all we want and then things happen. And so we had a bit of a crisis at Timber. And I just realized that my co-founders and I did not have the same vision for the future of the company. And the values that we were based on weren't really being honored and weren't the future that I saw and weren't in alignment with my own personal values. And as you know, being a coach, you do a ton of values work. And my values are so important to me. I'm not going to make that compromise anymore. I think I did for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, it's happening a few years early, but let's go. Let's do it. And so that's what Lumina Leadership was born out of. And the name Lumina is the Latin word for light. In my mind, it was like, I just want to shine a light, like for leaders on the things that they want to look at and help them shine that light where it needs to go. For me, it kind of represented hope for our industry as well. I mean, crazy thought to start an independent coaching firm during this downturn. But I tend to not do things the way that people expect. So I also thought, well, it's really needed right now. And everyone I talk to that says, oh, what are you doing now? And I tell them, they go, oh my God, that is so needed. So yeah, that's where it started from. That was the spark, kind of led to Lumina Leadership and the support that I got when I announced it. I did a talk at GDC last March that I was invited to.
Amazing.
Yeah, I've done a few, but it was just a micro talk about culture. But in that talk, I announced that I had left Timber and that I was starting Lumina Leadership, and the crowd applauded. I had to not cry. But I took the summer off and really just relaxed and spent some time in my favorite place, which is Salt Spring Island, and paddleboarded and cooked beautiful food and just had a lovely, wonderful time with my husband and just kind of reconnected to life a little bit. And then in August, September is when I really went, okay, this is the thing I'm doing. Like I built a website. I told the world I was doing it.
Yeah, that's a great way to start
on it.
Yeah, to commit.
Yeah. And then in the fall, started taking on clients. And yeah, it's been amazing. Like I will say I've never been happier in my entire life with my work. And I loved my career. I still do. You know, I loved making games and I'm still very connected to that. But yeah, I absolutely love it. It's been great.
Before we get into more coaching notes, more for the listeners who are in transition and asking themselves, because I have a lot of this conversation, should I consult? Should I be a freelance? Should I be a coach? The common questions I have are first the money, the stability, financial situation. Yes. I mean, when you start a service business, you can start to make revenue from day one, right? So that's maybe something
helpful.
Yeah. But I was wondering your maybe situation, if it was a concern at all, like your financial situation, what kind of backup or situation you had that helped make the decision, or what else could you share for the listener who are in transition to just have the courage to start and, you know, at least commit?
Yeah. You know, yes, I had a financial safety net, so I really didn't have to worry. Like I benefited from having a great career before that. And so I'd been, you know, good about saving. And so I'd set aside some money for one day when I decided to do this. I kind of went into it with the mindset of like, let's pretend you get no revenue for a year so that you don't have to worry about that. And you're just spending time seeking out the work that you love because the money will come.
Yes.
And that is absolutely what I visualized and dreamt and wrote about. And that my own coach pushed me to think about. And also just spent the time cultivating relationships with people. You know, as you must have known this as well, in business development in games, like it takes so long to sign that first contract. You know, maybe you get a request for proposal, then you put your pitch together and you meet the biz dev people. And then, you know, 6 months later, maybe you have a contract. So I really took that knowledge and understanding. It was like, it's okay. Like these relationships may be a slow burn eventually they may turn into something. And even if they don't, it doesn't matter. You have a beautiful relationship with this person in the industry. So just look at it like that. And really relied on my network of just people I'd worked with, referrals, people just being curious. And then I really started posting on LinkedIn regularly and just sharing my thoughts. And truthfully, you're one of the people that inspired me, because I found you on Twitter when you first started your coaching business and was like, oh, someone's doing this. Okay, this is possible. It is possible to do this thing. When you see other people doing it and doing it successfully, it helps you see that is a possibility and that it can be a viable career and something that is going to help people. And I think if there are people right now that have been laid off or are looking for work, dip your toe in. But what I will say, I think the biggest learning for me was that the business development is as much work as the coaching.
Yes, agreed.
And I mean, it's so funny because I knew that working in games, and I knew that from watching my husband do the business development he does. He's the chief creative officer at Blackbird Entertainment here in Vancouver. And I see that biz dev work. It's so much. So I knew it, but I hadn't maybe integrated it. So that's, I think, been my biggest learning, is that I need to be very protective of my time and understanding to really set out that business development time and focus. And so that's just been, I think it's been a recent shift for me. It's okay, it's so easy to get so busy with the teaching and the coaching and it's going so well and your days are full of that. And then you're like, oh,
your future.
Yeah, right. And so that cycle I'm getting used to. The money side of it, like you said, the revenue comes in right away, and then you may have a month where you have no revenue, or then you have another month where you have, half your revenue for the year you get in 2 months. And so you have to get very used to that. I grew up like that. So I think I assumed that I would understand it. But I really also, that was something else I really had to integrate into my understanding of your life is different now, and you need to plan and understand this. And now I'm much more used to it, and it feels very natural now. But I would say that took about 6 months of whoop, okay, this looks very different and what that looks like. But I think in the end, every time I had doubts, every time I was like, oh gosh, what's going to happen next? I just had to have a coaching session with someone. And then I would leave that session and be like, oh no, this is what I was meant to be doing. Yeah. Because I love this so much.
We have so much in common. That's amazing. And I'm so all the learnings you shared, also the learning I've been through. And this is important for the listener here to be prepared for that adjustment, because we come from employee mindsets where we wait for monthly pay.
Yeah.
And that is not happening.
And we take it for granted.
Yeah, exactly. And the things we have to take care of, but they're just part of a business. So it's one step at a time, setting up your business and exactly looking more on a bigger scope, your revenue, because it's your revenue, it's not a salary over a year rather than what's coming in every month and stressing about it. So having a bit of a backup, but that's what we have in a very good career, right? Some of the people here had a career, some savings, hopefully, to prepare for that. And the biz dev part, which is a lot building relationship, is integrating that exactly into the work, because coaching is such a personal process. People choose to work with you in the end. It's not about your method, framework. You didn't invent a method. I'm probably sure you didn't, but your way of doing it is you. Yes. It's you bring yourself fully there. And that's what people buy from you usually, although they don't know that. I can't explain. I like to spend time with Sophie or Zoe, and then they understand I feel safe, and then I can open up and all those things. So it's much more complex, actually. Yeah. What we are selling to say, I prefer to think what people buy from us. And it's exactly more building those relationships. This is the best way of doing biz dev. And if you like to spend time with people, getting to know them. I love coffee. I meet many people every week. I'm so curious about everyone. This is a soft way also of doing biz dev, and not the aggressive way, going on a conference and distributing cards. Nobody does that.
I love that you said the curiosity thing, because I set a goal for myself when I did this. I don't have a team anymore. I've had a team for so long. So I thought, I'm going to meet someone outside the house for lunch. And same thing with coffee or something, to meet another human in person. Yeah. And just hear about their life. and see what comes out of it. It's been so helpful just to like have those connections and then see and then hear what people are struggling with. And then that also has helped me go, oh, okay, I need to explain to people a little bit more what it is that I do. Because I even sometimes have people reaching out and they apologize before they even say what they want. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I know you're really busy and you probably don't do this, but can you help me with this? So, like, there's this idea that executive coaching is only for executives. And it's like, oh my gosh, no, it's about like executive behavior. And so I also feel like we need to somehow take that word away or add to it or alter it in some way. I've had people reach out to me and say, oh, I don't think you do career coaching. It's like, of course I do career coaching. Like, right?
Yes.
Because you're going to talk to me about your career. It's okay, just tell me what it is that you're looking for and let's create something uniquely for you. Because as you know, there's no cookie cutter. Like every human is so complex and so different experiences.
Something came to mind, like in the end, behind the coaching is really supporting human beings, individuals, either fulfilling the dreams or just feeling a bit better, in their body, with themselves. And it just takes different shapes or different like doors. Career, my problems at work, but it goes back to the same root. I just want to feel okay with myself. Which is, very human at the center of our work. I would like to spend the last 10 minutes here maybe to exchange notes on coaching for the ones who are interested in maybe expanding their path there. They've been in leadership position and exactly it's possible because the needs are there. I mean, I'm happy that others did the job of more education, like of we need maybe leadership in an organization. So that's the first foundation. And then to help leaders, we need a support system, coaches. So we have less and less that burden to educate what coaching is. And so I've seen more openness around coaching. And curious to exchange notes here about who's coming to you compared to who you thought would be. I find always this a fascinating discovery, and I'm happy also to share also who's coming to me. It's not the ones I thought that I would have, but you know.
So it started out, because I also do consulting, to help people with production operations as well. So those have been mostly startups, which has been really fun. And I've loved doing that work, seeing, my gosh, the incredible technological innovation that's happening, right? And it's so exciting. And then the coaching clients, every single one of my private clients right now, so not with organizations, but my private clients are all either women, people of color, or from the LGBTQ plus community. And I said that to someone else, and they were like, yeah, it's because that's your brand. And it's true. I've worked in advocacy my entire career. I was the co-chair of Women Against Vancouver. It's a huge passion of mine. I've written quite openly, quite critically of the industry and how we need to do better. But I find those people are also coming to me for very similar things, which is building confidence at work, to have the hard conversations. How do I show up as a leader? And how do I not have my difference be tokenized? And those themes are consistent across not just the people I coach, but people I'm just even talking to day to day. And it is something that is a bit of a problem in our industry. And I think we made some big mistakes in our industry in those arenas, and we still are neglecting those people. And how do we make sure they still feel valued and they can still show up as themselves as leaders and really push through this expectation of like what an executive is?
Yeah.
Because there seems to be some very acceptable parameters for certain people to be leaders that are not acceptable for others. So how do we create authentic leadership in that space? And that's a lot of what I end up doing. The core theme is often the same, which is how do I show up as a leader that's authentically me? So I'm not some corporate cutout of a leader.
Yeah.
Because I think in our industry, a lot of people don't gravitate to games because they gravitate towards that, that image, that PR image of who a leader is. They want this like authentic leadership, but it's very hard to understand how to get there and still be empathetic, have high, EQ, still be a clear communicator, still be considered a great business person, and be honest and clear and authentic. They have it in there. Like it's inside them, that knowledge, just need help pulling it out and taking a look inside. And then it's like shining a flashlight in your core of your being and then helping them pull out who that leader is.
The best thing we can do is to show ourselves authentically, having the courage, and then you are drawing to you the ones who are aligned and not based on the, the good word or the image that you're trying to build. This is where there's a dissonance. And the work like you shared as well is, and that which is so I find fulfilling, as coach, by working with people, is accompanying people to understand more who they are. This is the most profound thing to learn about yourself. It's transformative because once you know, you don't apologize anymore. There's no way to go back. Like, I know, And so if you can't accept me fully, I'm out of here.
Yeah. There are a lot of people going through that right now, when there also was a period of time where you could also go, see ya, and go get another job. Right now, you can't do that. And so I think that is something that I'm also seeing with people is they're feeling a little trapped. Yeah, so it's like, how do I make the best of this situation that maybe isn't serving me? But how do I maintain sort of who I am in this situation? And how do I survive? I think that's been a little heartbreaking. Yeah, because in the past, if I think about it, I would be coaching people and helping coach them out of the organizations they aren't happy in.
Yeah.
But now it's like, how do I survive? That is heavy, I think. But tell me about how your coaching changed as well. And yours has morphed into something a bit different than what you expected too, hasn't it?
Yeah. So at the beginning, I was perceived more, the product leader, and I do product leadership work. And that has evolved more as well as developed my voice around leadership and coaching, because it's also thinking forward, and what do I see, trends. And I think here we share the same view and the concerns about more of that balance, a place where you feel, workplace where you can feel not stressed, not having anxiety in the stomach, but feeling yourself, but you don't have the options, which is also reflecting more like, why are we time where organizations are not that place anymore where it feels safe? But that being said, is like, for me, now going out there and just being open and vocal, it has drawn to me over maybe more silent leader who like, I really want to express myself, but I can't find the courage or the way. And I resonate a lot to what you say. So how can I have the courage? So beyond, I found more people coming from the door, maybe help my business. But in the end, it's a lot around confidence, courage to act, making the hard decision. And most of my audience are women now as well. So because I have also toned also a bit more my voice and messages around women, where the more I learn about the patterns, because this is also each time we learn more, we can help more around the field. And then I was like, it can't be. Like, I hear dozens of women with the same problems and they are not talking to each other. I can't be passive there. So I started to organize more coaching in groups, which is not something I thought I would develop, but intuitively develop because of what I was seeing. And then always the question I ask myself, how can I create value, provide value with where I am right now? And that came very intuitively, that there was something to do in the space to bring those voices together. So they realize, oh, you too, I'm not alone. And then now what alone. Now? And then the collective, like power to say, let's fucking do it, And this is maybe the moment we need for confidence, because we work also very much collectively. So I'm so happy to support other women leaders and coach, like you. We're not here in competition. I just want to have a better world. That's my goal here. It doesn't matter like who's doing, and if there's space for enough, there's space for Zoe's and there's space for Sophie. So I feel very grateful to be in this conversation where we are, understanding each other and really working toward that future with more balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you're doing with community. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is. And I think often for women in video games, you're the only one on the team sometimes. Yeah. And you don't know who to talk to, or sometimes maybe the other woman in the company sits on a different floor and you haven't had a chance to interact with them because they're on a different team, a different discipline. But how do you create that community at work? How do you find those people? And then for leaders, just in general, no matter your gender, it's very lonely, as you mentioned earlier. You're kind of alone in this seat going, well, can I reveal this thing I'm struggling with to someone below me? Or is it going to worry them too much that we only have 6 months of runway left and I have to go fundraise? Who am I going to tell? Who am I going to talk to about that? And so I think it's so important for those communities of those people to come together and say, well, I struggle with this thing too. And they're like, oh my God, me too. Wait, you struggle with that thing, or you had that experience. Yeah, it's so important. And it's just striking me as we're talking, it's a little bit sad actually, but is that the biggest moments I've seen people come together, and I guess women in our industry, is when a new article comes out about sexual harassment at a studio. And then all the voices come out and everyone talks about it. And there's this huge sense of these things must change. And then where does it go, that energy? And it's kind of based in anger and frustration, which it should be to a degree, but then where's the action that comes out of it? And, I think that is a positive thing that came out of what happened at Blizzard is they made a huge commitment to women in gaming in the US, Women in Gaming International. And that's fantastic. It kind of reinvigorated that organization and got them some funding that they desperately needed. And so that's a positive change. But yeah, let's not keep coming together kind of, I guess, in anger and frustration, but in support and future looking.
Action forward, not to amplify like the problem we know, but like in action. And that's what we're doing today as well. Not giving more attention to what is already the problem, but like, okay, how are we taking ownership of creating exactly the future we want to see and be part of?
The idea of integrating masculine and feminine together.
Yeah.
We've heard some things lately about that. Those things go hand in hand. And it makes me think so much even about the science part of it, is that those hormones exist in both of us. We all have testosterone and we all have estrogen as well. Those things are inside us. And there's feminine and masculine in every single person. And those things have their beautiful sides. And why reject one side of it or embrace only one side of it?
Exactly.
We have to integrate both into our lives and into business.
Yeah, the balance. But right now, the business is very geared toward the masculine. And that's also where the dissonance is a lot for women, because we're not just that.
Yeah.
I will ask you this question at last. What makes you the most happy with your choice right now being independent?
It is the people I'm meeting. I've started coaching some new people recently, and I just, I love the conversation. I love the realizations they're having, the honesty and the vulnerability to trust me. It's kind of this very beautiful moment sometimes. And the transformations, I think it's so encouraging, on the positive side, that people want to explore their leadership and want to be better leaders, but then also just the life side of what people are seeking. I want more from this experience on this earth. And I want to know that I've contributed in some way, and step off the treadmill for a moment, for 1 hour with you and have that conversation. And I think I end my days when I've had a few coaching calls and it's like, I'm stepping across clouds. I absolutely love it. And the flexibility in life is also, I think, a huge benefit, realizing that your time is your time. And I realize it's from a huge place of privilege that I can do this, and, that I spent a lot of years leading up to it, and not everyone will get that chance. But I think that's the beauty of it, is it's almost like I've reclaimed my life and my time for myself. And I now have more to give other people because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I relate so much, Zoe, and I sense we'll get to work on something together, because it has to be. We are just, totally. I think we are definitely creating that impact this way through the multiplier, through the leaders we're talking to. So I'm so grateful there are other coaches like you out there, because we need that. Well, for today, thank you very much. By the time it's published, it probably would have happened. But to the menopause panel, follow the work from Zoe. She's doing interesting conversation, unfiltered. Follow her work. That's all I will say for today.
Thank you, Sophie. This has been so great. I've so enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a lovely day and weekend coming. And I'm sure we'll talk more.
Well. Yes, look forward to it.
Take care. Thanks for listening to this latest episode of the Rise and Play podcast. We keep growing our community of conscious leaders across the industry and beyond. If you want to join this movement, please share the podcast with other conscious leaders, because we have so much more we can learn from each other. And if you want to accelerate your growth, I offer creative leadership coaching and workshop, plus other free resources that you can find on riseandplay.io. I can't wait to connect with you. Have a great week, and remember to take care of yourself. Until the next time,